Hey guys, my name is Robert Ford. You may have seen some of my artwork on the site here recently, pencil work that's posted, but mainly it seems I'm more known for my digital work. A lot of you out there in the Zenescope coloring community enjoy them, and I appreciate that. It's very humbling. But I've been asked many times what mediums I use, what programs, am I on a tablet, am I on a PC, how do I do the shading, how do I get those images? And I've been asked it enough times that I thought, hey, you know what, maybe I should make a little instructional video, then if somebody's interested in it, they can go ahead and try it themselves. And so I've decided to do that. You might have been able to tell from the short beginning that I prefer digital over pencils or markers, and some of the reasons were pretty evident. I have a rather large collection of both markers and pencils, and I have a hard time finding the ones I want. Sometimes the ones I want aren't the shade I want, so I have to settle. It's not exactly how I want it. Sometimes I can't get the detail of the right blend or the right shading. That's not to say that I don't like the pencil artwork. That's where I cut my teeth on. You know, I have some work on there that I'm proud of, but not as proud as my digital work. What I found out was later on I came into a situation where I was able to pick up some things that really helped. And the number one thing that helped, Apple iPad. I've got an iPad 12.9 inch iPad Pro. And this one is the 2015 model. It's 128 gig. And everything that I do that you've seen on there is from this tablet. I will show you some of the programs and stuff like that in a closer up view. But this is where I started my digital endeavor. I've had no classes or anything like that. It's just a hobby that I got into, and I found out that I really enjoy it. So the next most important thing, other than just an iPad and coloring with your finger, which you could, I guess, but I wouldn't advise it, is the Apple Pencil. Now the Apple Pencil is the in my opinion, the best smart stylus on the market. It's got a pressure sensitive tip. The tip is removable. And this tip inside of it is actually a floating tip, and it's pressure sensitive. So if I want to do calligraphy or something like that and I press harder, the tablet will pick that up and it will broaden the brush stroke. So I can do anything from like a 1 pixel to 30 pixel brush, well, beyond 30 pixel brush stroke of colors that I choose. Another benefit is when when I do color pencils, a lot of times I have to stop and switch shades or sharpen it again because it dulls down if I want to get that dark, hard press color. It dulls really fast, so I have to stop and sharpen it. With this, it never dulls. And if I want to switch colors, I can just tap a color. And then if it doesn't quite have that hue or saturation that I want, I just move a couple of sliders and it's right where I want it. So why don't we come over and take a look at what I work with, and I'll show you how that. So as you can see, I have just a standard black cover on my iPad Pro. Open it up and I have I'm a big anime fan, so I have my wallpaper there. I was thinking about putting some of my own work on there, but it seems a little narcissistic, so for now it's my anime. So the main programs that I use for my artwork are, let me find it here. Okay, this Art Studio Pro. So Art Studio Pro is the program that I use. You can see I have a work in progress here. This is the one that I'm going to use as the tutorial. I've already done a little bit of work on it just to get it filled in so I can show techniques without spending so much time. But you can see that several things right off the bat is the colors on the right and the tool pad on the left. On the tool pad, I've got a image reset so I can move it around if I need to flip it over or anything like that to get the colors and everything where I want it. And I'm better at drawing up and down lines than I am left and right. So I tend to rotate a lot to get the lines that I need from there. So it's basically, it just turns it into a full piece of paper. I've got a cropping, a lot of this stuff, like in the backgrounds that I do and stuff, I want to crop out everything that's white noise. Like I want to keep the confetti in this one, but I'm going to take out everything else, and I'll show you how that's done later. I've got a eyedropper. What that does is that allows me to click that and then select a specific color on the area of a map, and it'll give me that same exact shade and color, a lot like matching paint at your paint store. It'll be identical to that area, and that's very helpful when you're doing shading and you mess up shading and you're wanting to redo it the original color, as I've had to do several times, especially with my fairy, the water fairy with the yellow wings in the water. I had to do the shading on that several times. But it turned out well, so it was worth it. Pencil. Now the pencil has several subgroups as well. I've got my brush, pencil, and wet paint. The difference is in the brush is that it's a broader stroke, and it's a dimmer color at first, and the harder I press and the more laps I do, the darker it gets. The pencil is exactly what it says. It's just a straight bold line of whatever color you have. Wet paint is the same as brush, the difference being that it's just like applying a very wet brush on a piece of paper. It's a very broad stroke and streaky. I haven't used wet brush much on this other than the background for the Van Helsing drawing that I did, the digital drawing for the background on that, the moon. To do some of the haze, I used some wet paint blurs along the top, and it worked out really well. Let's see. This is the heal button. So if you're in an area and you're having trouble with it, and you've done something like a burn or a highlight, which I'll explain later, and you need to revert it, you can use the heal, and the heal kind of covers it up. It masks it a bit, and that's helpful for recovering from minor issues. It doesn't really do much for me anyway from major issues, but I am still learning the program, so if I find out a better way to use it, I'll let you guys know. This is, of course, the eraser. In case I need to go through and erase anything, that's pretty self-explanatory. This is the smudge, blur, and sharpen. So for the techniques of shading that I use on the digital work, especially in that water fairy that I have, I used blur a lot. And basically it's the effect of using a finger on wet paint and kind of smudging it out to get a darker to lighter or darker to even darker fade, like a mixture of colors to get that fade. I use that a lot, and it really works well. It also works well if you accidentally highlight something too brightly among other things that are darker around it and you didn't mean to go that bright. Well, you can use the smudge to kind of cover it up, darken it from the areas around it, and smother it up, and it hides it very well. In fact, there are 3 major places on that water ferry that I did where I had to do that to cover it up. So, so it works. And here we have dodge, burn, and sponge. So the dodge is basically the highlights. It makes a per pixel anywhere from 1 to I think like 300 pixels brush, and whatever you brush on, it brightens the shade of whatever color it is up to a point where it is literally a gleam. This is most noticeable on the work that I did on the Van Helsing picture on her bodice. Originally, I was going to try and do a leather bodice on that, but when I used that, it came out really shiny and looked really good as like a vinyl. So I was really happy with that, so I kept it, and I started doing the other side the same way, and it came out really good. But that shine, that gleam that looks like a light's bouncing off of it, that's done with dodge. So burn. Burn is almost the exact opposite of dodge. It darkens, but it doesn't darken in the shades of colors. It literally just darkens. It looks like if you hold a piece of paper and wave a match or a lighter underneath it, it darkens it with that kind of burning color. That is what burn does. And then sponge is like applying a color with a sponge. The benefit to that is if you're trying to transition in from one color to another, it helps with the blend a little bit. You've got bucket fill. So bucket fill is just like painting a big piece and you want to cover a huge area. You dump a bucket of that color on there and it turns it to all that color. So if I wanted to, I could bucket fill this whole area around here to blue or yellow or whatever, and it would fill in all those areas except for the areas that are solid black outlines with that color. Pattern bucket fill, that particular area is if I have something cut out underneath this picture is a grid. That grid is a pattern. Now, if I wanted to cover that pattern, it's acting like there's not paper there. So I could use this and it would cover that grid with that color to hide it. Otherwise, it'll come out when you print it out, it'll come out with a little line there like a cutout, almost like a paper doll. And then we've got gradient fill. Gradient fill is what I used on the backgrounds for both the Van Helsing, actually all 3 of mine, the Van Helsing, the Robin Hood, and the water ferry all use gradient fill backgrounds. And what that does is it picks a color. When you go to gradient fill, you can choose from colors, and you pick a zone, and it goes from that color and it fades slowly over the page to black. So you could go like a bright color from here to black in this corner, or a bright color from here to black in this corner, or you could go from a bright color to white, or whichever direction that you wanted to do. Now it's a linear. I haven't found anything yet where, because I would really like to find one where it's like the centerpiece is bright and it darkens as it goes out like a starburst. That would be great. Or if there was a way to do lens flare, that would be really awesome. I really want to learn how to do that, but I'm not sure yet. Down here we have text box. You can use the text box. You insert text somewhere in there. On the Robin Hood picture that I did, I used it to make the signs on the right hand side because there's no way that I have a steady enough hand to do any kind of calligraphy or anything to match that. So I just used a special font and arranged it to where I could place it on those particular signs. And the search, you've got zoom, pan, and rotate canvas. I use my fingers for that instead of the directional buttons, because I can rotate, zoom, and pan all just with 2 fingers. So I just use my fingers. I don't use the button for that. And then favorites is if you want to set up a favorite color scheme or something like that. Now, over on the right hand side, I have several different colors to choose from. I say several. There's probably, I don't know, about 50, somewhere in there, 40, 50. But they're shaded. And the reason that I like that is because I can pick the shade that's close to what I'm wanting. Like if I wanted to do pencil mark shade blue, but I didn't want it that particular shade of blue, I could go down here and select the normal hues and stuff like that and change that color. I can actually tap on it here, and you can see that I have access to everything I need. So if I wanted to change that blue up into any kind of different blue or shade or hue or contrast or anything, I can do it with this switch, and I can get that exact shade that I'm looking for. So I'm pretty happy with that tool as well. So that is a very basic breakdown of everything I just showed you on that program. It took me about a week to learn everything that was in there, and I'm still learning it. There's still things that you can do in there that it's beyond me. I'm still trying to figure it all out. But with the knowledge that I have been able to create those images that I have posted to the Zenescope Adult Coloring Book Facebook page. As you can see, I mean, all of those devices that you saw in the intro, all of those pencils and everything have just been replaced by this. All I need is this. It's everything that was shown here. This equals all of this. This one thing it takes up. I mean, that's very, very handy for me. Now, some people like the different colors and the textures and seeing it and feeling that wood and stuff. I get that. I totally get that. It's just for me personally, I like the digital better. That doesn't mean that I don't do pencil work. I still do some pencil work. But for the most part, it's digital from here on out. But you guys didn't come here for a class lesson. What you wanted to see was the work in action. So. Alright, so in the video I showed just a little while ago, we had this image where I had part of it done. I'm testing out some new recording equipment and screen capture equipment, and it actually deleted about 30 minutes of work. So I just started over. And it's no big deal because this image is actually one of the easier ones to color. This is from the Myths and Legend Book 2. I was a Kickstarter backer, so I got a digital copy of the book, and I'm using that particular image. As I have stated in the Zenescape Facebook page, I have not read any of the comics or anything. I just find it fascinating, the artwork and the story concepts. I don't know who this image is, but what I am picturing is a blonde. I want to change up the mouth. The mouth to me looks a bit long on the top. I don't really like that. I'm not sure. When you zoom in, it's like, whoa, hey, all right. So I'm going to change that. I'm picturing her blonde. I'm picturing a green and yellow ensemble. I think that's going to look pretty sharp. I think the spell book I want to do in kind of a red leather, like Gorgon flesh. I think that's going to be pretty neat, showing off my D&D knowledge, I guess, my Dungeons and Dragons knowledge. I'll do a neat effect with this symbol. I think I'll do something electric blue maybe, and maybe a sapphire or something in the middle there. I'm not sure yet. That'll look good with the reddish color. I'll keep the confetti. I'll end up cutting out the background and putting in a gradient shaded background. But for now, why don't we just go ahead and get to coloring it in and showing you how I do things. So I usually just pick an area that I am seeing as a focal point. In this particular image, it would have to be the book or her hair. So I'm seeing the hair. I think I'm going to start with the hair. And as I said before, I want to do her as a blonde. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm noticing here that like right in this area here, you see there's like a strand of hair that looks like it's going to be the back of a hair, but there's no kind of texture or anything like that. I don't know that I want that there, because in my image, she has a ponytail or something tie off in the back. It's kind of flowing all from one side. So I think what I'm going to do first is I want to delete that one line, and I can go through and edit that by just selecting the pencil, selecting white. I'm going to pick 3 pixels. Now what that means is every little dot on the screen here, you can see it if I zoom way in. Every little dot, that one square, is a pixel. Now, however many pixels I set my brush to is how wide my tip is. So in this case, I want to pick 3 because I don't want it to be too large that I blunder up the drawing, but I want it to be large enough that I don't spend all day trying to blank this out. So I'm just going to follow the contour of that hair that I want to keep, and I'm going to blank out this particular stray hair, and I want to see what that looks like. Now, a good thing about digital coloring is that there is nothing I can do to this image that I cannot undo. There's no way I can ruin the picture. I can just go back and undo it, and it'll be right back where it starts. So if I go up to edit, I can go undo pencil, and undo pencil, and it's right back. But I don't. I want to keep it out of there, so I'm actually going to leave it out. I think it looks better without it there, so I'm going to keep it out. Some of you may disagree. Well, I'm sure I will see in the comments if that is the case. Next thing I want to do is the hair. Now, over here I have a selection of yellow, orange, deep orange, and then kind of a fire red or a fire truck orange. It's important to pick a shade darker than what you want to do. And the reason why is whenever you go to highlight it, it's going to brighten that color. And if you pick a bright color and then you go to highlight it, it's really going to wash it out to almost white. And you'll see that whenever I get into it, into the shading part later on. But for now, I'm just going to pick this kind of off orange here. Now I've got my fill select. I want to do bucket fill with that orange. And I'm just going to go up here and tap in the areas of the hair that I want to color that. And the first thing that you'll notice, a lot of the marker colors, pencil colorers are going to be like, oh, that's cheating. You don't have to do all those brush strokes and everything. Well, yeah, that's part of the reason that I like digital. But you'll notice that it's not completely filling it in. And the reason that it's not completely filling it in is that there are tiny, tiny pixels next to the lines that aren't completely black. And what fill does is it goes all the way to where it detects a pixel color other than what you started it in. So if it's not a pure white pixel, it's going to stop it. So see that one, those are just little dots. I'm going to have to color those in. So any of them that don't go all the way, I have to go back and color in just like the pencil colorers. So yeah, I cheat a little, but not much. So you can see there's some areas where I can't quite get to, or they're not going to quite fill right. And that's normal on all of the images that I've done. That's completely normal. They are worse. They're way, way worse when I scan an image. Oh my gosh, because when you scan an image, you get all of the pixels that are on the screen, and it darkens, and it's a nightmare. You can't really do the fill. The water pixel fairy that I did, that one was a scan, and oh my god, I couldn't do any kind of color fills. So all of the yellow, all of the blue, everything that you see there was just done by hand and Apple Pencil. And man, it was rough, but rewarding. So you can see here, I've got most of it done already with the hair. What I have to do now is actually go over and select my pencils, leave it on 3 pixels, and I can zoom way in and see where these white pixels are. And what I need to do is I've got to go through and blank all of those. I just run my pencil along the black outlines of her hair. And it's okay if it overlaps because I'm zoomed so far in that you can tell that I'm overlapping the line, but watch what happens when I zoom out. It slowly goes away. Once you're that far out, it goes away. If you go back to my images, if you've downloaded them and you can zoom in on them, you'll see a lot of places where I overlapped the black line. And you just can't tell otherwise. And that's fine. Now you'll also notice there's these areas where you notice that 3 pixels is pretty wide, and I can't quite get in that far without destroying some of that black line. So what I do is I go down here and I change it down to 1 pixel size. And then I can color it in from there like so. Just like that. Whoops. So notice I made an error there. I can actually just go up, undo it. Just do it again real quick. No big deal. And I try to get everything that is not an extremely contrasted color. So everything that's white or light gray, I try and take care of all of that. And the reason being is because if it's up against a black, if the color is up against a black, it looks like a more bold line. You know, recently in the on the Facebook page, somebody had asked me if I go back after I'm done and reshade the black lines, and the answer was a resounding yes. And the reason being is this right here. Once I get this through, I will change to a black brush and highlight those. And the reason I do that is to autosave. I have it set to autosave every few minutes. The reason I do that is so that
it boldens the line. It makes it look like it was crisp and clear and that I did not overlap as much. And it also really offsets the contrast to the color that's next to it. You can already tell, like, this area right here is kind of gray and it doesn't really look that good against the white, whereas this area is solid black and it really makes that yellow stand out, or that orange stand out. But I've got to go through here and in here, and notice I'm not doing it perfect. It's not an exact science. I don't really care if it overlaps. I need to be able to see where the image is, the image of the line, the black line. Other than that, it does not matter, because I'm going to be going back over it and cleaning it up after. But basically, I will go through and do all of this and get it all covered up so that when I zoom back out, you won't be able to see any of those little white pixels, white singular pixels. I want those to all be gone. Now, I'm sure you guys don't want to sit there and watch me do that for this whole thing, so I just wanted to give you an idea of how I was doing this part. I'm going to go ahead and complete it and be back with a second part.